If you came down with MS, this would not be like a, hey, let's defer to common sense.
Right,
Find the right doctor. And we would obviously try to utilize the most intelligent, progressive, but safe therapies for you. That's not something you and I are going to defer to common sense on. But when it comes to raising your kids or, strengthening your relationships with your parents, your partner, your friends, taking care of your mental health and your physical health, we've been doing this innately for tens of thousands of years as a species. We should have like a general consensus on what works and what doesn't. And I think this is where people get taken down rabbit holes due to conflict. And I would simply try to say, these are the things if you're interested, these are the things you should do more homework on. And I'm just trying to tell people what to think about when it comes to their health and where to get the right information. Just a hepatitis B vaccine can literally just take people, throw them into such a spin about vaccines and this and that. So it's like, how can you give them enough information that if they want to, they can effectively research it on their own and empower themselves to make the right decisions across the board in health? That's really the goal.
How much of this, all the stuff, so you're 51-year-old in great shape, obviously, take care of yourself, all of that stuff. But if we were to go back, say, 70 years ago, a 51-year-old probably would not have been worried about their cognitive health, meaning it wouldn't have come up. Do you think that would have been just pure like naivete, or that they didn't know enough, or that now in the modern world we're so slammed with information and endless scrolling that it is somehow breaking our brains, so that cognitively, without doing some extra stuff, perhaps we are not as sharp as we were way back when?
So if you look at the way we were living 70 years ago, or maybe a little farther back, it was more ancestral. So it was more blue zone diets. It was the polyunsaturated fats, things like olive oil, hence the reason.
So pre-saturated foods, or pre-processed foods, basically.
Yeah, you didn't have chemically extracted canola oil.
Yeah.
You had olive oil, and you had wild-caught fish that wasn't farmed and loaded with dyes and heavy metals and antibiotics. So the food functioned as medicine. And I think people got farther along into life with better health. They weren't obese. They didn't have all of these environmental and lifestyle factors that were aging them at an accelerated pace. And there just wasn't the understanding of what Alzheimer's was or Parkinson's was. And dementia ultimately in old age would be a foregone conclusion. The issue is, what's going to determine if you get it at 60 or 70 or 80 or if you're 90 and sharp as a tack? There are definitely genetic factors that play into that as well. And I happen to have a ton of them, which is so unfortunate. Like, I'm just a genetic disaster. Like I think I'm 2 feet tall. I've spent tens of thousands in laser hair removal. I had my nose fixed. My teeth were growing out of my eyeball. Like there's no reason that I genetically needed to reproduce.
You tied it all together quite nicely.
Thank you. But it's no small sum, So I think that the more aware we are now of genetic predispositions and the ability to intervene, those of us who can arguably do. And I also notice work-wise, I don't rely as much on my quads anymore, but I need to be much quicker mentally. We're constantly now getting in these debates with people on varying ends of the spectrum politically. Health has become a political football.
Yeah.
And, when you can't remember not just epidural, but you're trying to make a point, and tomorrow you're like, damn it, I could have smashed that guy if I had just remembered that one study. So I really try to preserve my cognitive function and be neuroprotective in light of all those things.
Just as an interviewer, one thing I've definitely noticed over the years is that people do lose their train of thought more than they used to. A lot of times people will say something like, I've got 2 things to say about that, and they'll tell me one, and then they have no idea what the second one is. And I'm not saying I'm immune to it either, but I have noticed that, having done interviews for so long, that kind of thing. And that may be just, so it's, I get it, the genetic portion of it and whatever, but I think there's a modernity portion of it that we still are not grappling with properly.
Just preparing for a week of work. I'm like, oh my God, hold on. Let me go back and review all of those studies that corrupted the food pyramid, because I'm going to have to speak about that on CNN, and they're not friendly. So it's like you pack your brain all with all of that. And then, we're going to want to talk about what Kennedy did here, here, and here. And we're so mad that he wants to remove fluoride from the water. So then okay, hold on. Let me go back and pull up all the research on, fluoridated water for better or for worse, and how you're constantly filling your brain every day. And there is a certain element of fatigue. Like your eyes start to cross in your head because you're trying to hold all this different information about so many things when you're giving interviews on it. It's one thing to learn it, note it, and say like, okay, you know what? I don't need fluoridated water, and keep it rolling. But when you have to answer questions about that and 50 other things, and I think we're packing our brains for the scroll is endless.
Right. And also people have other things going on. So if you're an expert in this, you can put a lot in your brain, but people can only take in so much of it, which is why I try to do like this type of bite size, and like, we don't need to go into like every little granular thing of everything. Or when people ask me about what I'm doing, like for me, it's sort of what you said about the sniff test with aspartame. Like, I'm just eating more whole foods now. I'm eating, more organic protein and veggies, and I'm just staying off the other stuff. And I'm not a doctor, but it just kind of was working for me. And I think if more people start doing that,
but do you need to be in many of these cases? If you came down with MS, this would not be like hey, let's defer to common sense.
Right.
Find the right doctor. And we would obviously try to utilize the most intelligent, progressive, but safe therapies for you. That's not something you and I are going to defer to common sense on. But when it comes to raising your kids, or, strengthening your relationships with your parents, your partner, your friends, taking care of your mental health and your physical health, we've been doing this innately for tens of thousands of years as a species. We should have like a general consensus on what works and what doesn't. And I think this is where people get taken down rabbit holes due to conflict. And I would simply try to say, these are the things if you're interested, these are the things you should do more homework on. And I'm just trying to tell people what to think about when it comes to their health and where to get the right information. Just a hepatitis B vaccine can literally just take people, throw them into such a spin about vaccines and this and that. So it's like, how can you give them enough information that if they want to, they can effectively research it on their own and empower themselves to make the right decisions across the board in health? That's really the goal.
What do you make of how the mainstream media is still treating Bobby Kennedy now? I don't know if you saw, but over the last couple of days, there was a clip of Bill Nye, the science guy, because he wears a bow tie, and he went on CNN and basically was going after Bobby again for vaccines, and basically saying there's no correlation between
That's a lie.
Vaccine scheduling and autism.
It's not that. It's not that there is or there isn't. It's that we do not have the data.
That's exactly what I said.
We don't have it. And
yet, but we do see some relative, what seemingly looks like a relative connection. But I get your point that doesn't necessarily prove anything.
It doesn't. And this is, again, so nuanced. Like maybe you saw RFK went on Tucker, and he talked about a hepatitis B vaccine study back in, the 90s, maybe, I think it was. And there was like an 1,135% increased risk for children who were vaccinated with hepatitis B. Now, so they were looking at the collective impact of an additive called thimerosal, which was 50% mercury by weight. That's no longer in the hepatitis B vaccine. Nobody mentions that. There are other adjuvants that are of concern, like aluminum. And aluminum is put in certain vaccines to essentially alarm the immune system when the pathogen, like hepatitis B, is dead, not alive. So how do you wake up the immune system and get it to pay attention to a pathogen that's dead? Well, how about a little bit of aluminum? Honestly, Dave, we don't know. And CNN actually, now let's see if I can remember this, because I did a whole thing about this. CNN had crowdsourced studies. And they said, Kennedy's lying. We have a ton of placebo-controlled trials on vaccines. He's lying. So here are the different factors that you need to think about. First of all, none of them were licensing of the vaccine. They were post. How many of these vaccines are actually on the childhood vaccine schedule? Because there's stuff like, just random diseases out of Japan on there.
Right.
I don't even think it was half, if I recall correctly. Of those vaccines that are on the schedule, despite the fact that none were pre-licensing, how many of them were designed to look at long-term safety? Not efficacy, like how long does it work for? Not immunogenicity, meaning how effective was the body in mounting a response to it, but long-term safety, very, very few. So when you end up going through all of these variables, Kennedy is still 100% right that none of the vaccines on the schedule used, and I forgot to mention this, how many of them used an inert placebo? So this means saline. Many of them used a placebo that was a previous vaccine. It's called an active comparable. So they manipulate this bullshit this way because the average person's like, CNN crowdsourced and there's the study and it says placebo. It doesn't say whether it was done pre-licensing. It doesn't say whether it was done for long-term safety. It doesn't say if it was done against inert placebo or active comparable. So he's telling the truth. He's telling the truth. And the reality is we don't know. And there should be nothing wrong with asking the questions and doing the research.
Well, that's the thing. I'm always amazed by their lack of curiosity because let's say that Bobby's completely wrong about, just for the sake of argument for a second, let's say Bill Nye is completely right. CNN's right. There's no connection between vaccines and autism. Why is it that you guys are not curious at all about the rates of autism?
Right.
But they're not. They don't do another episode. They're only interested in doing an episode on something that makes Bobby look bad. Not on an episode, not doing an episode on why do we have these strange...
Who funds these networks? It's like 70+% pharma. So, I mean, it is everything from, Kennedy said that the fluoride, the chemicals, the chemical form of fluoride being added to the water to fluoridate it comes from industrial waste. It does. Google it. Just simply put into ChatGPT, who makes money off fluoridating water? It is a byproduct of fertilizer. When they make fertilizer, instead of having to dispose of the waste, they add it to the water, which is we can go on and on and on from that. That is the truth.
For more insightful conversations on how to live the good life, go to our lifestyle playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a wide variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.